Hey everyone, thank you for joining us today. Today we're going to be speaking about how to reach Salesforce customers as a Salesforce ISV. So we have three people here today. We have Simon, Alyssa, and Ben, and we're going to get a really good perspective from an ISV, from an end user, and also Simon from a marketing agency as well. My name is Ben McCarthy. I'm founder of SalesforceBen.com, and I've got about 10 years experience in the Salesforce ecosystem. But the last, Salesforce Ben is 9 years old now. So for kind of the past, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, I've been working quite closely with ISVs to help them get in front of our audience. So this webinar is going to be recorded. So if you need to leave or if you want to send it to any of your colleagues, then it will be recorded and sent around afterwards. And we're also going to be having a Q&A at the end as well. So if you've got any burning questions throughout the webinar, pop them in the Q&A box at the bottom, and we'll try and get to as many as possible. So just to introduce our panel, we have Simon, who is CEO of Branch Road, Alyssa, who is head of RevOps at Aeron Group, and Ben, who is CEO of Pipe Launch. So, hey guys, thank you very much for being here today.
Nice to be here.
Let's get kicked off. So, Ben, let's come to you first off. So, CEO of Pipe Launch and ISV. So, if you could just give us an intro to yourself and Pipe Launch, that would be great. Oh, we can't hear you, Ben.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Cool. So first of all, thank you very much, Ben, for having me today. Like I said, I'm Ben. I'm one of the founders at Pipe Launch. We started about 3 years ago and really focus on anything around helping salespeople spend more time selling. My background is the Salesforce ecosystem. So I started my career a few years ago in accounting and finance, and then I moved on to becoming a Salesforce user about 14 years ago. And then 10 years ago, I really moved onto Salesforce partners. Since then, I've worked for ISVs, I worked for Salesforce itself, and I also worked for a couple of Salesforce consulting partners. And since then, all I've been doing has been around CRM and Salesforce.
Great, thank you, Ben. And I think it's safe to say, Salesforce is a crazy place. Every quarter priorities shift, and users are interested in the next big thing. But how would you say selling to Salesforce users has changed over the past few years?
It has been a massive change, I think. I think one of the first things we've seen is that there are new apps coming onto the App Exchange. If you're not familiar with the App Exchange, of course, it's the biggest B2B software marketplace. So the App Exchange alone has grown massively. So it's now 7,000 apps, which means that you have a lot of distraction. You have a lot of different applications that are being evaluated before you even come to speak to your customer. And also what we've noticed is that you have a lot of use cases, a lot of apps that are now selling to specific use cases. If you look at Conga is a great example. I used to work for Conga. Conga used to do document generation, and that's it. You go to market, you sell document generation. Now there's a use case that you're selling. It might be contract lifecycle management for lawyers. It might be an ATS system for recruitment, for example. So the use cases are becoming a lot more focused than they were before. And also during the current climate, I think people are focused a lot more on buying based on ROI. And even the buyer of your product has now changed, right? So a few years ago, if you were selling a sales tool, you'd probably be selling to a VP sales, you'd be selling to the person using it. Now, in many examples, we've seen CFOs buying CRM, right? So the chief financial officer now looking into CRM purchase, which you definitely didn't see 4 to 5 years ago.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Ben. Yeah, I think Conga is a great example of a first mover advantage, because when I used to work there as well, where we met, back in, I was there 2016, 2017, they used to get hundreds of leads per day just from the App Exchange, which was, which is pretty crazy. But now, I'm not sure if it's the same with so much more competition around. So with these kind of challenges and these changes in the market in mind, what has worked and what hasn't worked for you when trying to connect with Salesforce customers?
That's a great example. I think now, if you really want to get someone's attention, you need to become a thought leader, which before, like we said, even with Conga wasn't the case. He was selling a specific pain that customers had. Now you have to become a thought leader. You need to build a lot of content that's relevant for the end user. Examples like ebooks are now becoming very precious, and making sure that you're giving content to people that they actually need. You also need to understand, and people expect will be understood a lot more than before, right? People expect you to do your research. Being native is not everything anymore. So if you're just going out there and saying you should buy our product because we're native on Salesforce, that's not going to work anymore. You have people that will be going after best of breed, and despite the fact that you're native to Salesforce, you still need to bring in unique selling points that your competition that's not native does not bring. So that's massively changed the market. It's bringing that value back to your customer more than just solving a pain.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the things that really stood out from what you just said is engaging, is being a thought leader, which kind of means engaging directly with the Salesforce community. Like, I still kind of see ISVs out there who kind of want to do their own thing and, you know, don't integrate with the Salesforce ecosystem as well. And I think that's a massive disadvantage because the ecosystem talks, right? Word of mouth is pretty big in the Salesforce ecosystem. So how do you think ISVs can actually achieve, you know, connecting with customers in the ecosystem?
Yeah, I think one of them is being an expert of the industry that you're selling into, right? So being focused on the industry is everything. I was recently speaking to an ISV. They work within the recruitment space, so they have recruitment agencies, and the way that they speak the language of the customer is literally next level, right? And you can see that from their conversion rates. You can see that from the trust that they win from their customers. We have recently shifted as well our industry to recruitment and to education. And being able to speak that language is what's going to differentiate you from your competitors, of not just being their generic vendor. And also getting the right content, making sure that you're not just there. Ultimately, you have to give to your audience before you receive anything. And it is about sharing knowledge, is trying to give back what you've learned from other customers and giving it to your future prospects, and explain to them what the new trends are and what the best practices are in order for them to be successful, right? So the message is a lot more driven around success rather than just the features that your product is bringing to customers to solve specific pains.
Yeah, great, completely agree. And I think it's so important to just mention that, you know, Salesforce is completely verticalized now, right? Like, if you go to them with a co-marketing strategy or something like that, and you just say, yeah, we focus on every industry, you know, they're not going to like that, because all of their sales teams and everything is completely verticalized now. So yeah, a very important point. And out of kind of all the content that you've created, what has actually worked for Pipe Launch?
What's worked really well for us was, for example, an ebook. So we started speaking about user adoption around Salesforce. Being ex-Salesforce and having been in the industry for the last 10 years, I knew this was going to be a massive pain for a lot of people. So that's one content that has been very successful, where we actually had people reaching out to us and asking us about, you know, what they should be doing. Some people contacted us and said, we have 10,000 users on Salesforce, but it's not being used. We're getting into issues with management. And it allowed us to play that role of a thought leader and a trusted advisor. It doesn't mean that you'll win them as customers tomorrow, but you would certainly be a lot closer after that conversation than you were before they had a chance to look at that ebook. The other part that has been very useful for us is working, like I had spoken about before, is working on industries. So we speak about pains that sometimes are not specifically related to Salesforce, but it helps people associate your message with someone that knows the industry and the challenges of the industry. And it brought us a lot closer to potential buyers. And even if it wasn't to get closer to potential buyers, it helped us win champions within either existing opportunities, right? People that you wouldn't be expecting, people from the finance department or from the operations department reaching out to you and helping you on opportunities that you currently have open with those specific companies. So that has been a positive point for us as well.
Yeah, very cool. When we spoke the other day, something that really resonated with me that you said is you have to give before you get. And I think, like, you know, whether it's gated content or just thought leadership blog posts or something is a great example of that. And it's something that all the ISVs that we work with at Salesforce Ben, it's something we try and get everyone to do, to have some sort of gated asset that they can attach to their adverts or email adverts or something like that, because it's just, you know, the amount of conversions people see from a white paper / ebook compared to a book a demo form where a cold prospect is landing on this book a demo form, and they're just like going to go, I don't want to book a demo. I'm just looking. We see massive conversion rates with that. Great. Well, Ben, thank you very much. We'll see you at the end for the Q&A, but we'll move on to Alyssa. Hey, Alyssa, how's it going?
Hey, Ben. Yeah, going well.
Good. Thank you for being here. So could you just introduce yourself and your role in your company, please?
Yes. So I am not the head of RevOps. I'm the head of RevOps systems. So slightly different. I don't want to take my boss's job. So I am the head of RevOps systems at Aryan Group. So we're a property tech company based out of Germany, and I'm basically the head of RevOps systems, and our main system is Salesforce, but I do manage HubSpot and some other applications as well. And I've worked in the Salesforce industry for almost 10 years as well. I've worked for ISVs, end users, consultancies. I've actually done sales engineering adjacent to the Salesforce industry. So I've seen a lot of different things. I've experienced a lot of stuff, and have a really good understanding now of the ecosystem and obviously how to buy products.
Great. So working for an end user, obviously you're evaluating ISVs and always looking out for interesting things. So if you are looking for a particular category of ISV, how are you going out there to research and find potential apps?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I actually probably never go to the App Exchange. If I go to the App Exchange, it's because I'm going to download something I found off of Google. So I'm very, very rarely ever open it. And this has been not just in my role currently, but in previous roles as well. I do tend to go straight to Google and just search for what I'm looking for. And I want to look at the best of breed solutions. I think it really depends as well on the company that you work for. So if you're obviously in the end user role, I've noticed this at Aryan, where I work, is very different to how our security structure was at previous places. So we're more strict in terms of, security. So having a native app is actually very important for us, but at other companies, it may not be so much. So it's one of those things that I think, depending on the type of company that you work for, it depends whether you'll go straight to the App Exchange and look for something native, or you might go to Google. Personally, I still will go to Google to find, the most effective application, just see what's on the market. And I'm usually drawn in by content like white papers. Ben talked about his user adoption ebook, and I actually sent it to my team members. I was like, hey, we're rolling out Salesforce in a few weeks. Please just review this, because it was really good content for them to review.
Yeah, nice. It's an interesting point about not going to the App Exchange, actually, because I suppose the App Exchange, you just get one view of one set of reviews and one set of apps. But I mean, there are plenty of Salesforce, well, they're not technically ISVs, but loads of Salesforce apps that aren't on the App Exchange.
Yeah.
Gitset, for example, are a very popular DevOps platform who aren't on the Salesforce App Exchange. So makes complete sense. And apart from white papers and ebooks and things like that, what kind of piques your interest if you're looking for an app online?
I suppose if they have demo videos, I do love to watch demo video, even if it's just sort of a 2-minute, very quick walk through the platform. I like to see what the app looks like. I'm very drawn in by the UI of an app. I'll be honest, if it's got a bad UI, I will almost always just ignore it. If it has the most features in the world, it needs to look and feel like a Salesforce application, of course. And then I'm usually drawn in as well just by the reviews. Like, I'll go on G2 Crowd and I like to see what the reviews are, because I want to hear from other users about how they use the product, how they're using the tool, and how much success they're getting from it. So those are two big things for me. If I'm looking at content and I see, bad grammar, like bad spelling, I'm almost always gonna just ignore it, because for me, it sort of is subconscious, I guess, that the tool might not be as good. So I think it's really important when you are putting content out there that it is polished and it looks professional, and that will, resonate with users.
Yeah, makes complete sense. And when we were chatting, preparing for this webinar, you're also kind of talking about messaging as well. Less about the technical aspects of the feature, more about what it can do. Yeah, talk a bit more about that.
Yeah, exactly. So having been a sales engineer myself, so this is something that I used to do, but definitely always talking about value. So features and functions are great. They're a part of obviously what your tool does, but at the end of the day, you're solving a challenge for someone. And so as an end user now, I'm always looking for my challenge to be solved. So you mentioned GearSet just now. We were looking for a tool that would help us with DevOps, and GearSet met our needs from a features perspective, but it also provided me a ton of value because it saved me so much time. And that's really what the team focused on was, look, this is going to save you a lot of time. It's going to save you, manual errors. It's going to save you from having to, use change sets or the DevOps center. So that's the value that it was bringing to me as a user. And ultimately that was something that we were looking for. But yeah, I think it's all about selling the value, selling the outcome that the user is going to get from it, because features are great, but everybody has very similar features these days. It's more about how do you actually implement them on the back end.
Yeah, nice. And just kind of jumping off the back what Ben said, there's so many more people involved in a buying decision. Is that the same with Arion Group as well?
It really depends. I think that's actually an interesting point, because I think a lot of companies have different processes. So sometimes it really depends on the team that's actually managing Salesforce as well. So Salesforce now seems to be, sometimes it's in the IT group, sometimes it's in the RevOps group, sometimes it's in the revenue side of everything. Maybe there's not a RevOps team so much, but it's in the it reports up to the CRO. It's very interesting. As an SE in my previous role, I was selling to sales leaders basically, but we had to integrate with their Salesforce, and it was very interesting to see where the Salesforce team sat in each of those organizations, because it was different. So I think it's interesting when you're looking for an application as well. The team just needs to the team that you're working with, it's interesting where they sit within your organization. So yeah, for me, we sit within RevOps, and so I'm evaluating, my boss is evaluating, and then we'll look at the sales leaders as well, depending on the type of tool. But it really depends on, I guess, the end users that are going to be using it. So a tool like Certinia, obviously Financial Force, for those of you who don't know that they've rebranded, that would be a completely different set of users than a sales tool, right? So it really depends on who the end users are.
Yeah, true. So I guess it does mean then that messaging and content on the website does need to appeal to different sets of roles and seniority as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Great. And so when let's say you've done your search for some apps, and you kind of you found a few that you're like, what's your kind of process to narrow them down?
So I don't like to spend too much time with a ton of different vendors. There's so many vendors on the App Exchange and on Google as well, obviously, that I come across. I will tend to narrow it down to maybe 3 or 4 at the very most. I just don't have the time to go through the sales cycle with multiple vendors. So it really will come down to the product demos or the information on their website that I see. So that will be really how I narrow down to the 3 or 4 that I can go with. And then I just go through the sales process with each one of those vendors. So it's, it really depends heavily on the sales process. Like you said, if they're a thought leader, and not so much just a thought leader, but I feel like they are, like a trusted advisor within that industry, that is really, really important to me, because I may not know a lot about that type of tool. For example, again, GearSet, I don't really know a lot about DevOps, but they were very sort of a trusted advisor, and gave me really good information just across the board for a DevOps perspective, not just specific to GearSet. So that for me is really important.
Cool, great. Thanks so much, Alyssa. And just a reminder to everyone listening, we've got a Q&A at the end. So if you've got any questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A box, and we'll get around to them at the end. Cool. On to Simon. How's it going, Simon?
Good, thanks, man. How are you?
Yes, very well, very well. Good to be hosting this with you and Branch Road. So same question again then, Simon. If you could just introduce yourself and Branch Road, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'll go about me first. I come from a journalism background. I had hundreds of journalists across multiple broadcasts and online outlets. They were trying to take the same big stories of the day, but make them relevant for their respective audiences. Because if you can't engage with the audience, we couldn't sell advertising. It's exactly the same in business. If you can't engage your prospects with stuff they care about, you're just not going to be able to sell your product. And it is as busy as hell out there at the moment. So I've been interested forever, really, and what makes a good story, how you tell it in a way that people actually care about. And we founded Branch Road about 8 years ago. And to this today, we use the principle of storytelling to help tech companies find their audience and then create content that makes them relevant to that audience. We work with established companies like Dropbox, Oracle, ServiceNow, but also emerging SaaS companies, which is rewarding. Less political, decisions get made much quicker as well. And then obviously a few months ago, we started working with a team at Salesforce Ben, because we wanted to help ISVs who have a useful and a strong product offering communicate their value to prospects and ultimately drive more sales.
Cool. Thanks so much, Simon. So in the kind of market at the moment, Ben has just kind of given us an overview of some of the challenges that he's seen and how the Salesforce market shifted. But how are some of your clients seeing the market at the moment and going through challenges?
Okay, that's a good question. I think the one thing they share in common is they're finding that closing deals is a much tougher job these days. Prospects and your clients are now focused on that dreaded P word, which is profit. It's not like the good old days of 12 months ago. You now have to show that you're more than just another part of a complicated tech stack. As Ben said, there needs to be a build up before you can sell, or as I tell clients, and Ben, I say this, at least buy your prospects dinner first, right? You have to. But this is your biggest challenge. Even if you are committed to building awareness of your brand, boy, it is super busy out there. Your prospects, they're under attack with offers, boring white papers, crap videos, demo requests. So any attempts at marketing you do will be a complete waste of time and money unless you, A, completely understand who your audience is and the challenges they're facing. B, you have a plan of how to reach them. Honestly, most companies miss this part out and they just do what we call machine gun marketing. And C, when you do know where they're hanging out, engage them with content that talks around their challenges, because honestly, until they know you, they 100% won't care about your tech. If you think about, today, the pointless offers and emails you may have had emailed to you, or the ads in your LinkedIn feed, if it's not relevant, you just don't care, you ignore it. It's a waste of time.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Simon. And so what type of content that you're producing for your clients has got the best ROI at the moment?
Yeah, you kind of touched on it earlier when you're talking about how the app exchange is split up between industry, because industry specific content is critical. You have to focus on topics your audience actually care about. You have to show the backdrop that they're working against. And again, if you think about this on a really practical level, if you're a vegetarian, do you want to be told how, I don't know, beef burgers are made or how sausages are made? Not really. If your product is solving a problem, HR or specific to a finance vertical, show your audience you understand them, understand their sector, you understand their goals, and you understand their pain points as well. And it's hard, but you have to be incredibly objective, because in your world, how good your product is, right? You want to tell everyone how good your product is, and you want to show how unique your product features are. No one does a product feature like you do, but if you only take one thing from my old man ramblings today, please let it be this: without any context, your buyers don't care about you, right? They really, really don't. You are wallpaper, and you have to act on that, or you're going to get lost. And we see those that win start with a super relevant topic or theme. They find their audience, they build noise around that as well. They focus on the challenges, they build on the context, they say interesting things, they discuss the solutions, and then and only then do they talk about the product. Ben talking about thought leadership earlier on, because when you can show that, and thought leadership doesn't have to be you invest millions of pounds and get on TV and be super famous. Show you're relevant, because when you show that you're useful to a prospect, that's when they're curious to see how you work, and that's how you become relevant. And this morning, we were reviewing a client campaign where we'd started with a theme for Q2, and we built a gated, very human-led customer story to explore the challenges they were facing within the industry they work. We looked at the consequences of doing nothing and the solutions, and that went onto a landing page. We then elevated that story and designed social ads around it, and then used a combination of strategically targeted paid media, bit of organic press coverage in there as well, and some social media organic to drive prospects to that main gated asset. And then we'd set the CRM, the customer relationship management tool, up to nurturing engaged prospects with things like thought leadership blogs, some infographics on, on the same thing. And Alyssa saying that she wants more content at that stage, because when it comes to the contacting prospects, we had those sale enablement assets on the same theme, all connected, that were product videos and other case studies to talk through. And it wasn't machine gun marketing on just boring tech. It was useful, engaging marketing.
Yeah, very cool. I think something else that I've found that, or I think ISVs really need to do is, I mean, you tell people they need to create a content strategy, and it just seems like it's huge, and it's a lot of effort to create content, like no doubt about it. But I kind of feel like unless you do it regularly, you don't have enough data to go on about what actually works. Because you could uncover some kind of sub niche topic within your category that really resonates with users, but of course you're never going to know if you're not putting out maybe some rubbish content, and then some of the good stuff hits, and right, I've got my theme there that I need to double down on. And I think that's something we were talking about the other day, Simon, where you were saying quite a good strategy is to take one theme and then create lots of different content off of that theme. It makes it a bit easier.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. There is no silver bullet. All right, that's something that if you're new to marketing, or even if you're an established marketer, that then that there is no silver bullet. So you have to test things. You have to try things as well. And one way, you're absolutely right, is whether you call it integrated marketing or turkey slicing, whatever it is, it's take one subject, create lots of assets, and just test the hell out of it and see what lands, what doesn't, because it's not a dark art. It's just common sense marketing.
Yeah, nice. Completely makes sense. And just to take a step back now and explore something that Ben touched on about messaging. So would you say it's completely right to get your messaging right first before going ahead and creating your content strategy?
I would say Ben is absolutely spot on. If I had a gold star, Ben, I'll be posting it over to you, because before you create any content, right, before you invest money in that content, you need to find out, well, what is your story? Why does your company exist? What's your value proposition? Who are the audience that you need to communicate with, and why should they care about you? It's basically your Bible as a business. I mean, I don't know, a couple of brands that jump to mind. McDonald's, right? McDonald's marketing, they talk around how they're going to feed you when you're hungry, wherever it is, and whoever you are as well. And Nike, right? I mean, they had a great advert out yesterday after the Wimbledon men's final. Their adverts, they just relate to empowering you to get fitter, to getting better at that as well. So anything you talk about, anything you write, anything you film or illustrate, it has to elevate to a connected theme, right? Something that you can consistently become known for and famous for as well, right? That's genuine thought leadership. Because if you're siloed and your marketing, frankly, is crap, it's a waste of time, right? If you're talking about lots of different things and nothing connects, it's a waste of time. If you haven't got your messaging sorted out, your narrative, you're just going to become part of the very, 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 very noisy, very confusing noise that's out there. No one's going to care about you. In fact, if you start pinging me emails, or you start sending me adverts targeting me on LinkedIn with nothing that's relevant to me, nothing that makes sense, you're just going to become annoying to me.
Yeah, I think you can kind of think of examples in the Salesforce ecosystem. Like if someone says DevOps to you, or document generation, or e-signature, there's usually one or two names that come to mind. But of course now there's a lot of new categories popping up, like I don't know, change intelligence or stuff like that, where it's such a new category. I think people have a lot of potential to insert themselves as that thought leader and that go-to brand in that category. So you kind of touched on there about defining who a Salesforce ISV's audience is. So how do you actually go about doing that?
Ben, you're asking me to give secrets away. It's about pinning down which job roles are going to make the call on buying or using your product, right? And then crucially, reverse engineering that and thinking, right, what do they care about that's relevant to our product, right? So you've got to think beyond my product, right? Because, is it now just the ins and outs of tech. Is that what people want to know? They want to know the ins and outs. They want to lift the bonnet up straight away and say, oh, that's an interesting piece of tech, right? Alyssa illustrated that perfectly when she said, it's not, right? It's absolutely not like that anymore. And it's hard sometimes because when you've got such a strong product in your eyes, you've developed it, you know it's great, but people over there, they just don't care, right? You've got to show them. You've absolutely got to show them that they need to care about your product. So ISVs need to be super clear about what their product can do for different stakeholders in any given organization, not just how it works. You know, we've covered this already. More and more ISVs are telling us that people buying Salesforce apps, they're not just Salesforce admins, right? The heads of departments, they're from legal, they're from HR, they're from sales. And, you know, I mean, here's an interesting, if you think about it, you can be a CIO with a technical background, but in this day and age, I don't know any CIOs that don't have a business background, right? And they need to know how your product, how solutions going to impact the wider business, not how it works straight away. So they have different needs, priorities, reasons why they might be interested in your product. And if you can't tailor your messaging and your content to each of these personas, you're not going to get their attention. You're not going to be able to add them to your database or your funnel. You ultimately won't be able to sell to them. It really is as simple as that.
Yeah, very true. I think also a characteristic of the Salesforce ecosystem, which has been developing and is going to continue to develop as Salesforce gets bigger, the roles get more diverse. You know, if you look 10 years ago, it was probably just admin, developer, marketer. Now you have, you know, architects and business analysts are obviously huge now, and you know, DevOps release managers and things like that. You know, it's just splitting off, and the number of roles just grow. And each one of these roles has different you know, different challenges and pain points that they're looking to solve. So yeah, very, very true.
And you might be scaring people by saying that. And when you're doing your narrative, when you're sorting out your messaging, it's just a simple framework. Here's your connecting message that sits at the top. This is what we want to be famous for. And then underneath, here are the personas that we're after, or the specific verticals that we're after, and this is why we're relevant. Once you start writing things down and approaching it, and you're honest and you're disciplined with that, it's not as hard as it sounds, I promise you.
Yeah, no, very true. So Simon, this has been a great chat, and as a final question, what would you say to an ISV that, you know, doesn't know where to start or is just starting? You know, what should their priorities be for getting off the ground?
Priorities. Okay, so right, unless you run out of money or you've gone bust this morning or this afternoon, I promise you it's never too late. Even if you are watching this and you're feeling guilty because you've been one of those organizations that have been sending out unconnected, boring content, it's never too late, I promise you, because you've just been ignored up until now. But here's the ultimate litmus test, right? To see if you really do need to work on your marketing. Okay, you're in a lift. Mark Benioff gets on. We know you like him, Ben. I saw a picture of you two together. That was nice the other day.
Very nice.
Yeah, very nice. Was he nice to you?
He was, yeah. I think he knew who he was, kind of. So, you know, you have a look at my name badge, but, you know, I think he knew.
We'll know who you are, Ben. So you tell Mark, right? You tell him that you're an ISV, and he says, that's great, right? What is it that you do? Right, this is Mark, remember, if you can't tell him what you do in less than 10 seconds, right, the elevator pitch, and you can't include the problems that you're solving, the business problems, you need a new, you know, you need marketing, you need to rethink your marketing. If you can't do that in 10 seconds, forget it. You're going to be going out there with confused messaging. So if you're an ISV at the start of your journey, please make marketing a priority right now. Ben, we were on a panel a few weeks ago. That was the key message we were getting from, you know, these really well-established ISVs. It's get your marketing sorted out now, or else you just get lost. Because getting your ducks in a row early is just going to enable you to hit that ground running and avoid wasting time and wasting money. Because if you've got time and money to waste, you're in the wrong job. If you're an established ISV, maybe you're a marketer, maybe you're in sales watching this, I don't know, ask yourself, are you happy with the kind of growth that you're achieving for your organization? And also, be really objective with this, are your prospects truly engaging with the content that you're putting out there? If you're making contact with them once you think they are engaged, do they really know about you, about the problems that you solve, and then ultimately the product? If the answer is no, or you're not sure, then now is the time to listen to what Ben and Alyssa have said from their perspective, and start changing, put into practice what you've learned today. You know, if you want to sell your product, make your messaging and your marketing a priority, please. And if you really are unsure and you need someone to talk to, come and find me, come and find Ben on LinkedIn. I promise you the meter will never be running. If you want to have a conversation you're never going to be sold to, I just need to know there is less crap content flooding inboxes and flooding LinkedIn profiles as well out there.
Cool. Great. Thanks so much, Simon. So that brings us to the end of our chat. Thank you to Simon, Alyssa, and Ben, and we'll go into the Q&A now. So we've got a bit of time. So if you do have any questions, then feel free to drop them in the Q&A box, and we'll get around to as many as possible. There was a really interesting one that came from Heather here, but I'm just going to ask for some clarification. What's the future of Salesforce marketing when it comes to AI? Does that mean like using AI as a tool, or marketing AI solutions? But that if you wouldn't mind clarifying that, Heather, that would be great. But we do have one here from AJ, who says they've just launched an ISV last year, and they're on the shortlist for one top ISV products. Sorry, let me see. Essentially, they said their product solves a business challenge that everyone's been saying is impossible for the last 10 years. But I think the gist of it is they're struggling to essentially get demos, but once they see it, they're pretty amazed. So what's the advice to get them on a demo? Could be interesting to come to Ben. You unmute yourself, Ben, because
I knew you were going to pick me.
Relate.
No, so AJ, thank you very much for your question. I mean, you're probably facing a challenge that most ISVs are facing. Regardless of your background, I presume that you've been part of development of the product and that you're an expert within the industry. This is extremely challenging because you very often struggle to bring the value across to your customer. So at Pipe Launch, we had the same problem for a very long time, which was trying to get demos. As soon as people saw the product, they bought the product. Our conversion rate was over 50%, which is extremely high. However, we didn't really get demos because the way we articulated the message wasn't the way that the customer was making the decision, if that makes sense. So what solved the problem for us is to get a third party come in, someone that's a content expert, someone like Salesforce, Ben or Simon, people that see it from the outside and then give you feedback and readjust the messaging for you. So that would be my first feedback. I've been on your website just after you've checked, you've sent a message. It seems to be a great product. I think one thing that's very important, make sure that you add pricing to your website if you want to start getting conversion rates, because people will not be going out to you if there's not enough transparency. So that's the 2 points of feedback I would give you, AJ. Hope that answers the question.
Great. Thanks so much, Ben. Any other input on that question?
I mean, I wouldn't mind just jumping in there. I mean, I think that's a classic case of people just don't know about you. It's if people are amazed by your product once you get them on a demo, that's fantastic, right? Because you're solving problems. I would take the feedback about you know, when you are showing someone the demo and they are saying this is amazing, this solves this problem, I take the specific feedback they're giving you as to why it's solving the problems. I would build a narrative around that, and I would launch campaigns. I would get customer case studies on this. I would do blogs. I would come and do some articles on Salesforce Ben. I'd come and do a webinar with Salesforce Ben. I would create an ebook around this subject as well, and just amplify the hell out of it. It's just fantastic that you've got a product that works. All you've now got to do is just talk about the solution it solves at this level, and get people, you know, amplify that and get people to think, yeah, I need to have a demo of this. Grab people's attention, make them interested. It's not simple, but the solution on paper is quite simple.
I was going to say the same thing as well. You need to figure out what that hook is. So yeah, it sounds great if your product is solving something that hasn't been able to be done for 10 years. Obviously, people are going to find it valuable, but figure out what that main hook is and make it short and sweet and memorable, and just make sure that it resonates with people, and across multiple industries as well. And just tell the story around it, because people ultimately want to understand what the story is behind the challenge that it solves. Because, for example, I didn't really know what the topic was. I don't use Journey Builder, but if that was something that, I was coming into a new Salesforce org and they used, and everyone was telling me that this was, oh, there's so many bad things with it, or we need to solve this problem. If I go out and I find something that there's a story that says, okay, this was the challenge, this is how we solved it, and this was the outcome, that's going to be much more valuable to me as a user or as an end user trying to look for something to solve that than just, this is what our tool is. I love hearing about the story of what it solves.
Yeah, really good answers. Thanks, guys. And I think, yeah, it's kind of something that we touched on earlier. It's engaging with the Salesforce community. The Salesforce community is so tight knit, no matter if it's, in real life, me and Ben are going to be at admin user group tomorrow, speaking to the admin user group in London. There are so many Salesforce influencers out there as well that you can connect with and, get them to create content for you, pay them a bit, or jump on a webinar with them or something like that. Like, so many different ways to engage with the Salesforce community. And I've never worked in like the Microsoft ecosystem or other ecosystems, but from what I've been told, it's extremely different. It's not as tight knit, and, they don't have the same sort of community vibe that Salesforce does. So I think in some ways it could be easier to market within Salesforce, because you do have this kind of word of mouth effect, but also these influencers who have audiences that you can directly engage with. Cool. Thank you very much for your question, AJ. This is quite an interesting one from anonymous attendee. Is it best practice to build content based exclusively towards one buyer persona, even if our solution caters to several personas?
I can answer that, or help answer that, but I'd say definitely build content out for multiple personas, because people are going to be searching for various different things, and you want to make sure that you want to cast the widest net possible to catch as many fish, right? So I would definitely look at every single persona that you sell to, and then build the narrative, in each one of those verticals. And that's why Salesforce sell in verticals, today. And I would say do the exact same thing, just follow that lead.
I wouldn't mind just jumping in here as well. I completely agree. But it's going back to the point we were making about the narrative, right? Make sure that you have your connected narrative, your theme that's relevant to everyone up there, and then you build your different narrative messaging for your specific personas and the tactics that use them for them as well. I mean, you create, let's say you're going to do a customer case study. Okay, now a customer case study is not just a PDF or a blog, right? It could be a video, it could be anything. But again, a bad customer case study is where you've just got one use out of it. A good customer case study is where you take that customer story and you look at your narrative framework and you think, right, with this opportunity, I've got this customer that wants to do something with me. For that particular audience, I'm going to tell that story. So if it's for a finance audience you're talking to, let's focus on how they're using this product to either save them money or increase their productivity. This bit over here is to the C-suite, because we have to be able to talk to the CIO, or if it's the CEO you're after. So you're talking about the legacy this builds, or you're talking about something. And then down here, you might be talking to the architects, you might be talking to the actual coalface. So we're going to do a product video out of this as well. We're not just talking about the hero asset. We're going to create a product video. This is how they use it. Here's it from A to B. So I think, just thinking on that level, never just think, I've only got one audience.
And I think as well, I was just gonna say, I think as well, especially from like a sales engineering perspective. So I was an SE in my previous role, and we had to do the exact same thing when it came to doing demos, because if you're demoing to a group of sales users or sales leaders, it's very different to demoing to the CRO or the CFO. So it's incredibly important to be able to hit that messaging, no matter whether it's content on the internet that people are searching for, or demos that they're seeing live or at Salesforce events. So yes, definitely make sure that you can hit that messaging to each persona that you sell to.
Yeah, and it really depends as well on the size of your company, right? So if you look at Pipe Launch, we're now reaching 10 people, one persona is enough for us, because it's not like you'll be able to dish out content for 20 different personas overnight, right? So it really requires you to understand your customer, do a lot of A/B testing, speak to customers about your content. So depending on the size of the company, you might just want to have a couple or maybe 4. And then as you grow the company, you might have a lot more. So that also depends on the size of your business.
Yeah, true. I was going to say it's also good for experimentation purposes, but also that the audiences are different sizes, right? There are loads and loads of Salesforce admins, probably less Salesforce developers, even less Salesforce architects. But architects have more influence probably over deals and things like that. So yeah, but it also, as Ben said, if your budget is low or you have a low team, it's probably better to do one category well, as opposed to spreading yourself too thin and not getting much ROI. All right. If you do have any more questions, we do have a bit of time, so feel free to drop them in. We've got a couple more to answer. This is quite a nice one from Giles. Outside of App Exchange mediums, what would you recommend for getting noticed? For example, focus on social like LinkedIn or Twitter, or forums such as Stack Exchange and Discord. Anyone wants to take that one? Otherwise,
I can, just because I search for apps and stuff all the time. So like I said during the sort of question and answer bit with me, I will literally go to Google and I will search for what I'm looking for. So app, Salesforce app that does XYZ. That being said, LinkedIn's definitely a good place, I would say, because, I will just scroll through LinkedIn, in the morning while I'm just sort of waking up, having my tea in the mornings. And I'll just scroll through, and a lot of times if something comes up that's interesting, I'll just click on it. So that is really, really important. I'd say personally for me, probably less so on Twitter, but that could be very different for other users. I know Twitter is really changing as well at the moment. So that's definitely an area that, could be useful. For me personally, Stack Exchange and Discord, those kind of things, forums, not so much. I don't put as much stock in those type of things, but if you see a lot of traction, or obviously like links, people coming to your website from those, then absolutely invest in them. But I would just say really make sure that you've got content that's going to draw people in on that's SEO enabled or optimized. And it's going to make sure that it comes to they come to your website.
I think just from our perspective, yeah, I completely agree with that. And it's so good on a platform like this to get from the buyer's perspective. It's so important. Because I think I know a lot of people who just say, okay, well, we'll put a ton of money behind a paid LinkedIn campaign, right? That sometimes works, but again, doing that siloed just by itself, 9 times out of 10 is not going to work. There has to be a heady mix of, the Google work. So making sure you're high up there, making sure that you then complement that with the LinkedIn campaign, but then you dig deeper and maybe you think about some organic media coverage as well. If you've got interesting things to say, go off and get some organic media placements too. And I'd also say stealing's a bad word, borrowing other people's social feeds. So finding people in your area. So once you've done your narrative, understanding who are the big thought leaders already there with the big following as well. Go and do a joined article with them. Go and even if to pay them a couple of quid, go and do something with them and borrow their audience, right? If their audience, they might not be your buyers, but you're building your credibility, you're building the awareness of your product as well. And some will be your buyers. So I'd go off and use tactics like that. But just make sure you're mixing it all up at the same time and it's connected to your narrative.
Yeah, and try to live where your customer lives as well. That's very, very important. I'll give you an example. Our head of development, one of the most intelligent people I've met in my life, had the idea to put a lot of our content on Medium. We're selling a sales tool, right? So it attracted a lot of developers, but it didn't attract our buyer. So be very careful with where you put your content, and make sure that you put it where your audience lives. And it's the same with investing in campaigns. Simon did a great example on putting money into campaigns. If you're not sure your content is going to work, don't put money into it. We made that mistake multiple times. One of them was on the App Exchange. We've spent about $10,000 and generated 2 leads. And I can't blame the App Exchange for it or Salesforce, right? We then test the content enough before we went out to market, and we pay the price for it. So always make sure you test it and live where your users live.
Yeah, completely agree. I think just from my point of view, I would say like social is from my kind of experience using social is it's very hard to get conversions from it. But I think unless you have tens of thousands of followers, but I think it gives you a face and a personality and a channel for you to share your content as well. You have to be doing SEO as Simon was saying to get the rankings up in Google, but social is a perfect place for you to share your content and share updates with your team and just give people a bit of insight into what you're about. And I'm sure the compounding effect of seeing social posts and seeing, you know, oh, this team's growing and oh, they've, you know, released this new feature, you know, I'm sure it will engage buyers over time. But it's I would personally say LinkedIn is a no-brainer. Like, we get so much traffic from LinkedIn in comparison to other social sites. Twitter, I think a lot of Salesforce people live on Twitter, but I think you have to be fairly engaged on it, unlike LinkedIn. And I think Stack Exchange and Discord, a lot of Salesforce developers live there. I know there's a Salesforce developer a Salesforce Discord for Salesforce professionals. I think it's mostly developers, but I think they do allow some kind of ISVs to live on there and promote content. So it's something else to check out also.
I just think, Ben, really super quickly on this as well. If you think, like, it's a good point about your organic social feeds as well. If Alyssa recommended my service, or I recommended Ben's service, or we recommended you, what's a natural thing to do? Is to go and check the website and also find out how active they are. I need to find out more about this company, so I'm going to do a bit of my own research on this. If your social feeds are empty and you're not engaging with other people on your social feeds, again, are they likely to trust you, or are they going to go somewhere else? They're probably going to go somewhere else. So it is important.
Yeah, definitely. So there was a question here actually from Heather, and I think Ben might be the only one who can answer it, about what recommendations could you provide on the Salesforce App Exchange marketing program?
Well, there's so much we could talk about. We could do a separate webinar on it. One of the things I mentioned, which it's definitely a must do on the App Exchange, try to check that your content works before putting it on the App Exchange. On the App Exchange, you have dashboards, so you can look into those dashboards and check how people have found you on the App Exchange. Once you know what the top 10 keywords are, you need to look and see who's number 1, 2, and 3 on those keywords, how people find you. And then your job basically is to try to get yourself as much as possible on the top 3 to start generating leads. But this will only work if people also find you outside of the App Exchange. So try to generate content and push people to the App Exchange listing. What I can give you as advice, Salesforce gives out the search logic and the rating logic. So try to get access to that and try to learn how you can get to the top 3 positions. So one of them, you need to organically push people onto your listing outside of Salesforce. Try to understand how the scoring works, and then work your way up from, let's say, place 5 up to the top 3. That's how we did it as well. And you'll see a massive increase on your demo requests or trials. Once you've done that, that is when you should be spending money on the App Exchange program and try to get even more leads than before.
Nice. Thanks a lot, Ben. I had no clarification on this question from Heather saying, what's the future of Salesforce marketing when it comes to AI? But maybe I don't know, Simon, do you have any opinion on AI and using AI tools to market?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of companies out there who will do you an SEO plan. You give them some keywords and they'll spit out 1,000 articles on it. And AI is fantastic if it's used properly. When it comes to marketing, AI for me, used properly, enables you to be a better content editor or curator. Okay, there is always going to be grunt work to be done, and AI massively helps with that. We've been experimenting with different models. We've been building our own AI platform as well to say, right, not here's a product, let's rush out and talk about something. It's like, right, how is this going to make us better at what we do? And from a content perspective, you just chuck in some keywords and you just, maybe do a proofread of it and you publish those. All you're doing is contributing to the noise. You are just contributing to the pointless noise out there as well. So, AI for me makes you better. It enables you to edit at the top, and it enables you to steer the middle part, the creation, then write the content, and then actually make sure that it's proofread properly and it's going to do what it needs to do. There is a massive role for AI in marketing, but it doesn't become marketing. It just becomes a really incredibly useful tool. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I tend to 100% agree. Like we've tested it out and seeing if it can write fully fledged articles and things like that, and it can't to our standard anyway, because we're we're a team of content writers, so we're not too impressed with what ChatGPT can put out. But in terms of inspiration and can you reformat this paragraph because it sounds a bit rubbish or something like that, like absolutely fantastic as a tool. I would also say, just, I mean, this might be obvious for a lot of people, but ChatGPT is only up to date to September 2021, I think I'm right in saying. So most of its knowledge on Salesforce will be pretty wrong. So yeah, I'd say it's great as a content tool, but for specific Salesforce things, I wouldn't use it because it's a good chance to be out of date.
I would say 100% I can vouch for that. It's absolutely out of date. But what it is great for, like Ben was saying, to like rewrite paragraphs, it's also great for like very concise definitions of something. So I tend to waffle on when I'm writing, on a Salesforce Ben article, and it's just great to just give you a very, very concise, easy definition for people to digest. Sometimes I struggle with doing that. So it's great for stuff like that, which can obviously help when people are reading your articles to make sure they understand everything in it as well.
And also, I think it's very far from perfect. We're already seeing the beginning of something that could be, like Simon said, could be very, very valuable for the future of marketing. I met a founder recently. He gave us these platforms to test it, and it just goes into your website, looks at pricing, at product descriptions, looks at the last 10 LinkedIn posts, and then comes up and suggests content that you should be writing in the near future. And it was very, very impressive. The person that's running content for us right now looked at me and said, I hope it doesn't get better than that, because I'll end up losing my job. The reality is, I think we're very far from that. If you look at our ebook, could AI have written the ebook? Maybe, I don't know. I don't think with the same level of detail, but what AI definitely couldn't do is to find 12 influencers, ask them for a quote and put it on the ebook, right? You still have to do the heavy lifting. You still need to put your IQ into it. And like Alyssa said, it's a great support, but it's not more than support, and it won't be more than just a supporting tool for the foreseeable future anyway.
I think what you said earlier, Ben, as well, about the size of your team, not being able to create potentially as much content because you have a smaller team. If you can utilize AI really effectively to help you do some of the grunt work, like Simon said, you can obviously then produce way more content that is actually valuable than you would be able to with a smaller team. So it is incredibly useful, but absolutely I don't think it will ever fully replace human created content, or at least edited content, because everybody puts their own style and creativity into pieces, and AI is never going to be able to replace that.
Well, we are seeing a really interesting use is for when it comes up to you need an illustration. So if you're thinking about an ebook and there's something specific, and it might be so left field, you can be inspired by putting in a description of what you want, and all of a sudden it creates something. Now, there's no way you're going to use what it creates at the moment. Maybe in 12 months you can, but it then gives your design team kind of like, you can say that this is what I had in my mind. And if you're ever doing video work as well, it can really help visualize a storyboard too, rather than you spending hours kind of researching on the net or going through past productions you've done. So that you can use it now, but just please use it with caution. Don't let it become your editor.
Great, thanks so much, everyone. All right, that brings us pretty much to the top of the hour, and we've got through all the questions. So I'd just like to say a massive thank you for everyone for attending. Hopefully you've enjoyed this session, and also a massive thank you to our panel as well. Any final words? I'll start with Ben.
No, I mean, not many words. Just want to say, keep doing it, regardless of the size of your company. If you feel that it is difficult right now, don't forget it's difficult for everyone else. It's your opportunity to differentiate and to get business and to become stronger for when the recession and the slowdown in the market is over.
Great, thanks, Ben. Alyssa?
So just thank you so much for having me. Hopefully the content was useful. Yeah, just make sure you guys are telling your story. That's my main advice.
Cheers, Alyssa. Simon?
Okay, final words then. I'd say be honest and be objective about the marketing you've already done, right? Because you may think it's good, but if it's not resonating, you won't sell. It's really simple. Marketing helps you sell more. So be really honest about where you are at the moment. But remember what we talked about before, it's honestly never too late. It's never too late to start.
Great. Cheers, Simon. Thank you to all three of you, and thank you again to our wonderful audience for attending, and we'll see you all next webinar.
Thank you,
Bye.
Ben.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone. Bye.